Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from November 1st. Motion made by Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Paula. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Approved. Thank you. Now, is there anybody who would like to speak during public comment? Anybody signed up? No? Okay. I just want to acknowledge that all the sitting board members who ran for re-election got elected on November 7th. Brendan, Katina, Mary, and I. And I also want to thank everybody from all parties who worked on the elections. And we have a new board member that has been elected to fill us out to our 9-person board, which we haven't been able to be for quite a while now. And the new board members will be sworn in at 6 p.m. at Town Hall on Tuesday the 21st. So the next board meeting on December 6th will be our first board meeting with the new board makeup. And we'll all be talking with each other about who wants to be on which board, which committees and things of that sort. So stay tuned. But I want to thank everybody who got out and voted. And Curtis, I want to extend our condolences that you didn't win. But it was nice. It's been nice to have you here at the meetings. Now we're on to superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. First item on my report is the usual biweekly attendance and discipline report. So I'm happy to report that the attendance rates in every one of the schools has improved, which is something that we've been working really hard on. And in terms of discipline, we are seeing fewer overall discipline incidents. We took the board's feedback last year to make sure that we had a more consistent way of reporting out on those incidents. So I think the data is showing that. We also are just about the same place last year as we are this year in terms of in-school and out-of-school suspensions. Pretty close. For example, in 22-23, there were 85 in-school suspensions documented in e-school, and right now for the same time period, there's 86. In terms of out-of-school suspensions, in 22-23, we had 87 at this point in time, and this year we have 85. So pretty close, and since last year's data was actually an improvement in overall data, I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but we did better last year than we had in many years in the district's history. I am feeling like we're in decent shape. We obviously are still working to reduce the number of in-schools and out-of-school suspensions, but we also want to keep our schools safe and running efficiently. So I'm feeling good about the data. I don't know if there's any specific questions about attendance or discipline.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Mary?
I'm just wondering, is CARE, what program is that?
Yeah, so now that we have a new name, we can actually adjust that. Make note of that, Neil, for April. We can adjust that to Phoenix. That's the Phoenix Academy, Windham's Phoenix Academy.
It was never called CARE, though.
No, but what we did was April combined CORE and AWP and called it CARE on our data sheets. So it's now, we'll make it the Phoenix Academy. Thank you for that.
Anything else? Okay, thanks.
Yep. Next on my list is just to give the board an update that we had our very first monitoring meeting of the year with the Connecticut State Department of Ed. As you know, we are an Alliance District and Opportunity District, And so we have to go through benchmarking, monitoring meetings 3 times a year with the state, where they review all of the pieces of our accountability plan and the things that we're putting in place from an instructional standpoint. We have 3 key areas. That's literacy, numeracy, and student attendance. We had that meeting on November 9th. Got a number of really, I think, positive feedback. They made some good observations and gave us some recommendations to strengthen our accountability system and continue to empower our leaders and our staff members around the work. So myself, Mr. Weathers, and Mr. Harris participated in those meetings, although the entire leadership team contributed to the document that has to be provided to the state. I think it was 54 pages long. So we have to give them all sorts of data and basically prove to them that we're doing the job, and then they come in and evaluate how well we've proven to them to date. So that went well. Just wanted to keep the board up to date on that. Any questions? Yes.
Can we have a copy of the recommendations and accommodations?
So they
I don't need all 54 pages, but
They haven't actually formalized them yet. It's a dialogue we have with them, but then in the next agenda they send, those commendations and recommendations will be listed. So I could ask them to speed up the written piece and get it to you. Otherwise, I'll be giving you copies of my notes about what they said.
when we get the official report, I would just like to see
Sure,
what it is.
absolutely. Next is just to let the board know that we've been working on walkthroughs this week. We're working with Dr. Betty Oska from the Partners for Education, and we so far have seen Windham High School Science Department, Barrows, Windham Center, Windham Middle School, Natchog, North Windham. Tomorrow we view Sweeney, and Friday WECC, and the Phoenix Academy is actually having their walkthrough in December. Very happy to report that we will always have things to work on, because instruction is not, you don't, suddenly get perfect at delivering instruction. There's always something that can be improved, but overall, the feedback, the information that people are gathering in these walkthroughs is really positive. We know for certain in the classrooms we visited that we are implementing our curriculum, Eureka and ARC, with fidelity, and working really hard to make sure our kids are getting what they need in literacy and numeracy. And Dr. Oska, who's been doing this with us now, I think this is her 3rd year, right? Was open in all of our debrief sessions to say how much of an improvement she's noticed in the district. So that was really positive to hear.
Any questions on that? No, thanks.
Most of you already know this, because a lot of you actually were at the breakfast that was provided by the high school students. They provided a breakfast to the Board of Ed members and to members of the Renovators New Building Committee in the new culinary space at the high school. So it was, there's some pictures of the kids cooking the pancakes and stuff.
It was delicious.
Yeah, they did a great job.
And very impressive.
Absolutely. We hope to have, do more things like this. But my all-time favorite thing about this event was when I learned that they want to name the kitchen, the restaurant area, Whip It Up, Whip It Up. I just think that is like the best. So I got quite a kick out of that. All right.
Are they going to have the song by Devo, Whip It, playing?
Yeah, that's right. Could go that way. Last on my list for the superintendent's report is we took some students to the state capitol because they were winners in a contest, an I Voted sticker contest. So the winners were a student from Windham High School and a student from Barrows. So that's Asia Jones and Ziva DeSauniers. And they went to the state capitol. Actually, Mr. Harris was able to escort them along with some members from the registrar's office. And they had a tour of the state capitol and conversation with the Secretary of State. So we're really proud of those 2 students and happy that we were able to have them participate in that activity.
The stickers were beautiful, and I wished I had taken them and not put them on my coat. Oh, did you keep yours? They were so nice, and I heard reports on Election Day that other people from other towns who saw people from Windham walking around with their stickers were saying, wow, we should do that kind of contest in our town. So
That's great.
maybe
because
it will
you
start
just
to spread.
get that regular I Voted sticker with
Right.
the check, so that it's much nicer to have students' artwork, for sure. Awesome.
I I have a question. So that's one of the winners. Where's the second winner?
I'm not sure. Holly, do you know? Okay. Okay, so we can ask for the pictures of the winner's artwork.
Bring mine next time.
You have it, right? Okay, thank you.
Paula and Mary have it too, so.
Okay.
Oh, there, right
that's
there.
Adorable, yeah.
Brendan has them on his laptop.
Nice, very nice. Okay. All right, looks like we're moving on to discussion.
Yes. And Albie mentioned that field trip when I was at the Harvest Breakfast, and he said that it was absolutely fabulous that the Secretary of the State spent so much time with the Windham kids who were up there. So it was really special.
Yeah, and Albie really likes the whole, government. It's part of what he did prior to the role he's in right now, and so he was really impressed that they took the time and were teaching the kids things. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, so now we're on to discussion items, and we're going to kick it off with the Accountability Index, which was recently released, and the board has been sort of waiting to hear from you all about where we landed.
Right, so in October at the board retreat, we shared, Mr. Weathers and I shared a bunch of information about the Accountability Index, and at that point in time it was all of the district's calculations, which by the way were very close to the actual figures. Thank you, Mr. Weathers. So right now we're just going to go over the things that we now have confirmed with the state because the data has been released. And this is also a piece that the board requested at the board retreat, that you have regular check-ins around the Accountability Index. So, Mr. Weathers, take it away.
So for those of you that were at the board retreat in October, a lot of this will look similar, but it's worth the overview and just the repeat just to refresh, and for people that were not at the retreat. The Accountability Index overview that we're going to talk about is the Next Generation Accountability Index is the report all public school districts get and public schools receive in Connecticut. Actually, I see Ms. Natalie Poirier in the audience at our data team. We're actually talking where you could look at this document on the public ed site. So once this is published, everyone in the state or anywhere on the internet can access any school in the state or district. There are 12 indicators broken up into some sub-indicators, a total of 22 for the district by which schools are measured, which include student achievement and growth, which is a substantial piece of it, chronic absenteeism, and for people, just a reminder, chronic absenteeism is defined as students who miss 10% or more of their membership days. So in a 180-day school year, that's 18 days or more. Graduation rates, the 4-year cohort rate that most people are more familiar with, is along with the 6-year high needs rate. Physical fitness assessment pass rates, and then college and career readiness, which is, there's a couple categories for those based on the types of courses that students are in, and then the percentage of students passing certain courses or getting on certain exams. So just a brief overview of the now public results. The official index was released in October, just past month. The Connecticut index decreased from 69.7 to 69.3 from 2021 to 2022, up to this current year. The Windham's index remained the same at 60.7, so it didn't go up or go down. Windham's index remains the highest in DIRG-I, and when I say DIRG-I, that refers to district reference group, and the 7 in our DIRG are Hartford, New Haven, New Britain, Bridgeport, Waterbury, Windham, and New London. I think I got them all. If I repeated, I apologize, but I think I got all 7. We remain the highest in the DIRG, and then as a matter of fact, I think only one even had a slight increase. The majority of them actually decreased. The district goal over the next 3 years is to increase our district index to 70 or greater. We do believe this is attainable. It's an ambitious goal, but we do think it's an attainable goal.
Thus, the back to the 70s
Yes.
Right, I wouldn't have made him dance in that
Right,
video if I didn't
right.
think we could do it.
at the convocation, the back to 70s theme.
Right. Correct. Okay. So the strengths, things that we're celebrating right now is, what we noticed is we made improvement in math and ELA achievement. A vast majority of the schools in these, it made it in math and ELA, and as a district. Windham exceeded the state average for physical fitness assessment, which we had never done before. So our schools really chipped in on that indicator, so kudos to that staff. We've mentioned this before. Absolutely should be celebrated. North Windham School and Sweeney School made significant increases. Last but definitely not least, Windham Middle School was the most improved school in the district, and they exceeded their pre-pandemic index total. They're the first school to do that. Now, we say that like we're very excited, but we know they had kind of a low numbers, so we want that to obviously continue, but they're definitely moving in the right direction. It was a great year for them. So we're very happy about that. Area for growth for us, really, I kind of broke this down into two things. The first two bullets are in science. An area for focus for us moving forward is the Science Performance Index. We had a good year the year before, but we had a decrease in that across the board. One of the nuances of tracking science is a little different than ELA and math, is that it's tested every 3 years. 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade versus grades 3 to 8 and 11. So that's one thing. So trying to develop internal monitoring between those 3 years. And just so everyone knows, our current 11th graders actually haven't taken the science test since 5th grade because the COVID year of the lockdown. And then our current 8th graders have never taken the test, so they'll be tested this year. Just a little side note. Windham High School was identified as a focus school for science, and how that occurs is it's 3 years of data. But again, because of the pandemic, the previous 3 years of data were the last 2 years, and the third year is actually 2018-19. So it's kind of a little wonky, quirky last 3 years of data. And then the other focus, I just put continued improvement in all areas, because what we want to see is steady, continuous growth, and that will lead to vast overall improvement. And then you have probably all this data in your packets. I just wanted to show, so like it's a very cumbersome document to look at all at once. This is just the school, the entire district. What I did is highlighted improvements, and then red was areas where it was just lower than the year before. Sometimes green or red, could be very, very slight, but I put them nonetheless. You could see again, like I mentioned, ELA and math was a strength, science not so much. Our ELA growth was a strength. In math, we decreased. I still had some working hypotheses on that, but it was still a stronger number than we had seen in the past. Our literacy, our last links assessment for our English learners was kind of a split in growth. We decreased in literacy, but improved in oral. Our chronic absenteeism improved. It's not under 30%, which is what you need to begin getting points on the index, but you can see a dramatic improvement. That was one of the things that got noted at the state. By the way, right now we're on really good track with that. We had significant improvements in our end of October numbers compared to a year ago. Very optimistic about that particular indicator moving forward. You could see that in the percent, we had the percent of students taking courses was 94%. That was fantastic, taking like AP exams or higher level courses. And then we need to work on the percentage of those students passing. On track to high school graduation decreased a little. Just so everybody knows, that's a tricky indicator, as once the students leave our 8th grade, even across the state, how they do in 9th grade, we don't know, so we have to wait for that to happen.
We're just taking a look at the chart. It appears there's a couple that we actually did increase, but it's in red on your chart.
Oh, I'm just a really hard grader, I guess?
Yeah. We don't need any help there, Neil, seriously.
Sorry. Okay, well, thanks, sorry about that.
So we'll republish this with the correct number of green boxes and, okay.
All right, yeah, I'm seeing that with the 6.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and the error's in our favor, so we want to make
Yeah,
sure it's
sure.
correct.
That's awesome. Okay, sorry about that. I digress. So our on-track to high school graduation did decrease. Our 4-year graduation rate decreased, but just so everyone knows, indicators 8 and 9 are what we call lagging indicators. Oh, and I understand why I put that right now. They're lagging indicators, meaning they're a year out. I think I originally had that in the red, but when we got our updated number, I just didn't change the color, because that's a really hard one to get. That's one of the very few indicators I can't really predict, that 6-year. So anyways, those 2 indicators, though, are from previous years. So what we do know is that the high school and the district will improve in this number, because we're using our most recent high school graduation estimate, which increased around 4 points at the district level and around 8 points at the high school level. So we're pretty excited about that. And then post-secondary entrance, again, that was the other indicator. I was going by previous data, but that went up a point, so we're excited about that. And then physical fitness, our highest ever. And then arts access as a district was slightly below 60%, which is the state target, but I believe the high school actually met it. I don't know if anyone has any questions before I do our goals. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I had looked at the high school percentage of students, taking the advanced courses along with the pass rate. And, I would like to, we did talk about the tutoring at the last curriculum meeting, but I would really like to know how we can support the students more, because, accelerating but without adding support is not, it can be very demoralizing to have 2/3 of the class not passing.
Right. So one of the potential barriers that can exist sometimes, and I don't want to get into too much conjecture on this, but so you could be in potentially an ECE or AP class, and then potentially when the exam comes not take it. So that would count against our pass rate, and we don't know if the student would or would not have passed. And you can have theories on it, right? But that, like, if students don't take the exam, they potentially can't pass. And then the other exam that we know all of our students take that we can work on, in addition to the one I just mentioned, is the SAT, and you'd have to meet the state benchmark in both ELA and math. I believe it is 480 for the EBRW, evidence-based reading and writing, and 530 for mathematics. But yes, I don't disagree with your point. So district overview, this what is the school total index numbers, the bottom number that you were seeing over there. And what you see is the pre-pandemic, I'm keeping that number at 1819 until we surpass it at all our buildings. You can see, like I mentioned, the slight Windham Middle School did pass theirs. You can see what they were pre-pandemic, what they were the previous year, and then last year. And then what we basically did to get to the superintendent asked in that video, as you saw at the convocation, and we set the target so that we could be in the 70s as a district in 3 years. And just so everyone knows, it is an ambitious target. Once schools start reaching the 70s on their index, I reduced the goal to 3 points, because at that point, as you increase on the index, it does get progressively much harder to keep increasing. So repeated goals of 5% when you're in the 70s or 80s, I don't think that's a realistically ambitious target. A realistic ambitious target.
Thank you, Mr. Weathers.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I am concerned that, 4 of the 7 schools had declines.
I think everybody's concerned, and that's why convocation and school by school, Dr. Youngberg is working with the leadership in those schools to up these goals. I mean, up the results. Yep.
Yes, and I do think if the chronic absenteeism continues in the direction it is, I think we will not have 4 out of 7 schools with a decrease this next year when we're having the conversation again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
More to come on this. Yeah. So the next item is, we're going to hear about pupil services. Go ahead
Yes.
and do the introduction.
Sure. So if you remember, you can come on up, Aaron. If you remember a few weeks back, the board was interested in getting some information related to the elementary program, special education programs that we provide. So I have Mr. Aaron Coleman, Pupil Services Director, who's going to give the board some of that information. So it's all yours, sir.
Does this thing, can I turn it upwards so that I can, taller?
Aaron, you can
A little
just
bit.
pick it up and
I can
hold it.
tilt it up?
Yeah, just hold it. Yeah.
See, Brendan knows it's tall. Good evening, Board of Education members, Dr. Youngberg, colleagues, members of the community. Very honored to be here. Dr. Youngberg let me know that there were some specific items, a focus report that we wanted to talk about. Before we get started, I have a couple of my team members that are here I wanted to recognize that are very involved, specifically with our elementary specialized programs. My assistant director, Kate Colavecchio. And then our newest member of the team, Taryn Rickey, the supervisor that's supporting in our elementary specialized programs at Natchog and Sweeney. Can we advance the slide, please? When I did the first draft of the slides, I had several acronyms in there, and Holly made me aware that I needed to clarify all those acronyms. So leave that first slide, had all the acronyms broken down. Apologies, a lot of acronyms in special education, as you're all aware. And of course, I walk in assuming everyone knows what those are, but we did have a key for everyone. So RISE is Reaching Independence Through Structured Education, for those of you who didn't know. And typically our students in RISE, pre-K through 12, are students on the autism spectrum. That said, it's not exclusively students with autism. We do have students with intellectual disabilities. And on a case-by-case basis, based on PPT and what's best for a student, they could be considered for a RISE program. We do have it over here at our early, at WECC here on this campus, the middle school, the high school. Of course, Sweeney is where we have it at elementary level district-wide. So it has its own building code. We no longer do have it at Phoenix Academy, formerly known as CORE, just to clarify, because there was a small portion of it there. We do have a medically fragile program over at Windham Center School, but that's it's RISE, but RISE-M is what we're calling that. It was rolled out with East Consult support a couple predecessors ago. I believe Miguel was working on that. You may all be aware of that. We did discontinue or put that on hiatus. We were spending a significant amount of money on that consult, and while it was very, very thorough, a lot of data, a lot of support, we were cycling with the same results, and really the issue was retention. They would get a lot of data in place, a lot of support in place, and then we'd have turnover with staff, which is continuing to be an issue. So it's the ABC model. So depending on cohort size, that's 3 classrooms. A being our students with the most significant, involvement that are primarily self-contained. B, kind of mid-level, and C, where the students are getting out more into the mainstream environment with support. Sweeney currently has 3 classrooms. That's our elementary RISE model. We did start the year with 2 teachers and a long-term sub. Unfortunately, we did have pretty early turnover. I did share actually at dinner about one specific situation. Shortly thereafter, we had someone we had to let go. But we do have 2 long-term subs teachers. That's what LTS is. So they're wonderful individuals, but they are very much in the learning process. Committed to students, a lot of experience with students, but not necessarily students with autism or in self-contained. And then we do have a paraprofessional that is in a step-up situation supporting one of those classes. So there's 8 tutors, 8 paraprofessionals. That does include the step-up paraprofessional. When I say 8 paraprofessionals, we do have a vacancy in which we do get Delta T sub support, and we did contract with 2 RBTs, which are registered behavioral technicians. We do have BCBAs in place district-wide. At this time, we're down to 1, but that's a board-certified behavior analyst. They do support with the discrete trial instruction per the EastCon consult, and that's really individualizing instruction and breaking down different learning tasks per student. And there's a data collection procedure for each of the students. Several of our students have augmentative communication, PECs, and those are their means of communicating. Some are verbal, of course, or differing levels of verbal. So I talked about DTI. Most all of our students are receiving all related services, speech and language pathologist, as I mentioned, the augmentative communication, they support with that. Occupational therapy and physical therapy. Occupational therapy is more the fine motor. Physical therapy obviously being the gross motor, but there's the sensory integration support, which most all of our students with autism certainly have sensory processing issues and needs. So there's a lot of support in the classroom for that. Functional behavioral analyses, known as FBAs, those are called on a student-by-student basis when we're having concerned behaviors that we want to target and obviously reduce. Behavior intervention plans are something that are created once there is an FBA that's done. Typically, a BCBA does that. We have had social workers do them. We've had to rely on school psychologists as well. All of those are PPT decisions, and it's typically something that occurs when there's a concern. In terms of staff needs, as I mentioned, the retention issue, we've had a lot of turnover. We had 2 teachers last year that didn't return with us. We had 2 that started the year who are no longer with us. It's special education in general, there's a lot of turnover, but we're certainly experiencing more than that post-pandemic. Coming from outside of the district, this is not just a Windham issue, I can assure you. I experienced that in another state post-pandemic, and I'm certainly have experienced that here in Eastern Connecticut in another district. So I did want to clarify that. There's always needs for training, which we do. The district has been amazingly supportive. We do have is it biweekly or monthly? No, the RISE training specifically. That's what it's biweekly, and it's every other Monday or Tuesday. Every other Tuesday, we have secured an hour after school contract time, after bus support for our students that require bus support, where there is training deployed, and that could be Mrs. Colavecchio. I've performed some training. We brought people in. Miss Ricky supports that. The building principal, obviously, Katie Firth, has been a tremendous support. We bring in our specialists, our OTPT, our BCBA. So, and we probe the staff as to what the needs are as well, outside of looking at what the data is showing us. We do have PMT training, and that is physical and psychological management training, and that's when we're talking about restraint and seclusion, which is unfortunately something that is required at times when there's a behavior that's a danger to self or others. And then CPR, first aid, which I believe we've talked about. We're working on that internally. Can I get the next? Yeah, please. I was told we wanted some financial data this right now, and I want to thank Rita for her help in getting some of these numbers together. This is a breakdown as to our expenditures for the current classroom. This is projected for the current school year. That's those 8 paras, 8 tutors, 2 step up. This does not include our RBT contract. I just noticed that. We are contracting those RPTs, and that is an additional $125,000 approximately, just shy of that, 124 and change. So just to clarify, that 553, 533, 84 is really more like 678, not quite 678 to be safe. And that's supporting the whole program for the whole year. Our goal is not to have those contracted RBTs the whole year. We want to build that position, so again, that number could be reduced. We wanted to talk about outplacement, public and private numbers, and I went back a few.
Excuse me. No, I just wanted to ask a question.
please.
Thanks for that clarification on the dollar amount. And I know we're talking about outplacement, but how many students are in the program total?
Thank you. At this moment, at the elementary program, we have 20 students.
20, okay.
Correct, between the 3 classrooms, and now 17 of those students are coded specifically for the program. 3 of those 20 are out, being included enough where they're not coded solely in the program.
Okay.
So that's that time with non-disabled peers, they call it twin dip. So they're out more often than not.
Okay,
So
thank you, that's
17
helpful.
and 3, perfect. So we went back a couple school years. I didn't go back pre-pandemic, and I figured that pandemic affected year, that 2021 wouldn't be clean data. And frankly, having onboarded this last school year, I'd have to do some research to get pre-pandemic numbers for outplacements. But we do run a June count and October count. You will notice a jump, obviously, from last October to this October. And let me know if you have questions. But in terms of the outplaced private, those are pretty much solely PPT decisions. And that big jump you'll see from October 22 to October 23, there's a direct correlation with us. We did close our program at the high school. So I'd say roughly, that would have added at least 8, if not 9 students. And then I can think of at least a half dozen students that have moved into the district just since I onboarded in February that came with an IEP that called for outplacement. So I did want to, and this came up actually very recently. I had to work with one of our amazing data specialists with regard to communication with the state, because the state does monitor these kind of things, and they're like, wow, this is a big jump. So we had to provide that rationale. Outplaced public, that's not always a decision we make. Sometimes it is, because I mean, EastCon is considered an outplaced public. So, you know, that could be a student at E.O. Smith, a student at ACT. It could be a school choice. So those are not exclusively PPT decisions, if that makes sense. Are there any questions about that or clarification needed? So I did pull our out-of-district tuition report, and you will see several different lines in which we pull tuition from. I know there's a lot of numbers up there, but you really want to focus on that year-to-date expend. This slide is a few school years back, and that's $2.6 million out of district placements, both public and private. So those are tuition contracts that we encumbered. And this is this most recent school year. You will notice a jump again, that year-to-date expended. If you look down to the bottom, that's the total, and it's roughly a $360,000 increase. I do want to again add that we did have multiple students that we had programming for in district that we were forced to find programming elsewhere. So that would have led to that increase. Dr. Youngberg did catch that the original appropriated amount was actually less, but in the end, the adjustments weren't in our favor. We did reduce our SESI contract, though. We did originally have 3 classrooms. We did absorb the 3rd classroom elsewhere with that closure, that previous mentioned closure last year. We did determine not to move forward with the 3 classroom model, so we did reduce that contract by a 1/3. I shouldn't say exactly a 1/3 because they certainly raised their price, but yeah, we did save money there.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Mark?
Thank you. Thank you. I originally asked for this because I've noticed through the Finance Committee that we have a larger number of journal transfers that are covering these expenses. So I'm wondering, are we looking at them stabilizing at this point? I know you really can't predict if they're going to go up or not up, but they seem to be exceeding what we had budgeted for them.
I would love for them to stabilize. It's a very difficult decision to support, moving a student to a more restrictive environment. The goal is getting them to the least restrictive environment. I It is hard to predict, as you said. As I said, I can think of at least a half dozen cases just since February, and that's just off the top of my head. I mean, names, the whole nine. I am your out-of-district case manager, where they came in with an IEP that called for outplacement. So what I will say is we have a behavior continuum in place, and we work very hard, and our whole goal is to work students into full inclusion and really having data to support dismissal of services. While I want to say yes, I certainly can't guarantee it. As you said, it can't be predicted. But I don't know that you could have someone more committed than myself or my team in really righting that ship. And about what's best for students, but certainly stewardship at the same time, to be certain.
And are we seeing any decline, or with the high use of temporary staff, how is that affecting the overall quality of the services that we're delivering? Because stability of staff seems to be important in special needs students.
You know, Mr. Doyle, I've been here a little over 9 months now. I think I need a little bit more time to give you a more appropriate or a more thorough, informed response. There is a critical shortage, and we do depend on long-term subs, Delta T, et cetera. We have coverage issues. We have attendance issues on a day-to-day. We could be fully staffed and still have attendance issues. So,
okay. One final question, if I may. When we, in the past, have cut some of our internal programs or even brought programs back inside, it seems to always affect our state reimbursement rates. Do we anticipate that we're going to get more or less from state reimbursement? May that be maybe a question for Tracy, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Do you think you can answer that, Rita? I don't know if we can know that.
we're working on excess cost right now with a December 1 deadline to speak to that piece, but I can, yeah,
Okay.
we'll have a bit more information for you in a few short weeks. We're working on Medicaid reimbursement as well, so.
My concern was just, I know in the past, we've sort of shot ourselves in the foot. We pulled a program out of district and brought it in district, and that lowered some of our expenses, but that in turn hurt us even more in our excessive cost reimbursement. So there's a balance there between what we bring in to save money, then we end up losing in the excessive cost grants. I was just curious about that.
Valid point. I'm going to do a lot more research on that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
Katina?
Hi, if I remember correctly, students who came from other districts with IEPs that mandated them to be outplaced and became our residents, we would reevaluate that. Are you talking about 6 students with outplacements that are now residents of Windham, or are they in the kind of unhoused, homeless category where they still are here because they are in a shelter, et cetera? I mean, what kind of students are they moving to our town? Because in that case, we can certainly reevaluate and decide upon which setting, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. Yeah, when I'm talking about 6 students specifically, yes, they have become our students. Very different situations, all of them. When an IEP comes in, that's where they're coded like outplacement in terms of their time with non-disabled peers. They're in a clinical day treatment setting. There's a file that follows along. Depending on when their reevaluation was had, it's a 3-year calendar for evaluation. If it's a recent we can look at each case, and we do carefully. Once a student's transferred in, there is a PPT. There's certainly a file review. We have supported definitely some positive movement into at least one situation recently where a student is no longer in a clinical day treatment setting. Obviously, don't want to violate FERPA, but vaguely speaking. So we are seeing positive movement, and we are committed to including our students to the best of our abilities as appropriate per pupil.
Thank you. Mary?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The first is regarding the registered behavior technicians. So do you think we could at some point have them on our own staff, again, rather than outsourcing or getting temps?
Absolutely. Our goal is to grow our own internally. So the 2 individuals are amazing, but they are contracted. The likelihood of those 2 individuals becoming our employees, I don't want to speak too much to that, but our intention is to grow our own. Would be a significant savings.
And step up, that means you're training someone to, I don't know what that term means.
So a para step up, there's actually within the Connecticut State Department of Education, you can actually apply for a para to be, step up in the absence of, there's such a critical shortage. So that's really what that is. And it does equate to more responsibility and certainly, monetary incentive. It's certainly not a certified teacher, though, at the same time. In this case, they're not writing IEPs, but they are providing supervision that's above and beyond the normal duties of a paraprofessional, and it is legal.
And then the last point is, you said that there would have been 20 slots or placements at Sweeney, but first of all, is there room to grow just in the event that there are more students who have the needs? And is there, for these types of programs, additional nursing support? Because sometimes, obviously, these students have, the needs may be beyond what a para especially would be needing to do in terms of assistance.
So there were some layers there, Dr. Gallucci, so bear with me and reiterate if I miss anything. I'm not aware of any specific students in the program that have specific nursing needs. That's typically over in our medically fragile. There are certain requirements environmentally, like air conditioning. We have some other environmental accommodations. The space is structured in such a way to support the discrete trial instruction model. There aren't just paras, there's tutors. We do have the RBTs at the moment. There's the long-term subs. There is, Taryn Ricky is there frequently. Most days, at least half days, some days full days. We have Miss Firth is in there quite frequently. And then we have our OTs and PTs that are there quite a bit as well. So we have a lot of support. I'm sorry, our speech and language pathologist is there quite a bit. And we also have an SLPA, so a speech and language pathologist assistant. I neglected to include that. So a lot of different layers of support. In terms of room for growth, in an ideal situation where we had stable staff, certified teachers, it could grow a little. In the current state that it's in, I don't think we could accept another student. In the event that we had a student transition out, being that they don't need that level of support anymore, we could entertain adding another student. But given the growing process that we're in with newer staff, and I don't want to call it instability, students are safe and being supported. It's just not an experienced, comprehensive program. It's very much a work in progress, but I've seen a lot of progress. I don't want to undercut it. We've done a lot of, we and they have done a lot of work in improving the program thus far. I'm very proud of them. Did that answer all the questions, Dr. Gallucci?
Yes, thanks. I mean, I'm just thinking also in terms of the nursing staff for the rest of the school, in the sense that having classrooms that are for students who have higher needs can put kind of a pressure that, might also impact that. I'm just thinking in those sorts of terms.
I mean, there's a school nurse there. I fielded some concerns coming out of the program. The school nurse I haven't heard anything from the school nurse or anything specific to nursing support. I'll look into that. Taryn, have you heard anything?
I was just going to say that the school has, what's the current enrollment up to with the program included? 230. Right, which is a really, really low number in terms of student enrollment. And that school at one point had as many as 350 students and still one registered nurse. So I don't think the nursing is a concern based on the number of kids, and even with that program and the potential for specialized needs.
So just to add to that, I don't want to, sorry. So I supervise our nurse supervisor, and we talk about caseload and nursing visits. So it has not reached saturation there, but there's no, the nurse isn't being overworked, or the students' needs are being met, is a better way to put it.
And I see Ms. Rigi's head nodding that that's the case. Yeah. Anything else?
Any other questions?
This was very helpful, and having the glossary of terms and sort of the breakdown of the number of students, and you were very forthcoming about the challenges of, you know, staffing and things. Much appreciated your candor, but also your positivity about it moving in the right direction and the children being safe, and the staff really doing a good job with them. So I appreciate that, even though there are a lot of hurdles that we still need to overcome.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Nice job.
The next item is the Windham Public School Survey, which people on the board may remember is one of the things that we've asked the superintendent to make sure happens during the year, so that we can get feedback on all sorts of issues that we need to be paying attention to. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. So as you all recall, you tasked me to contract with a company that would provide a service, a survey service that could allow our staff, families, and students to respond to survey questions completely anonymously. So we contracted with Panorama Education. We have built a series of draft surveys that we have shared with our district survey committee. In fact, Cammie is a member of that survey committee. So this draft actually came after they gave their feedback just a day or two ago. So it is listed as a possible vote tonight. I suspect the board needs more time to digest this information because you haven't seen it. I am hoping to have the vote taken on December 6th so that we're able to use the month of December for the first implementation of the survey. I'm looking to do a survey in December and then a repeat survey in May, beginning of June, in hopes of showing some growth or progress toward the items we identify as needing action. So just so the board knows what you have copies of each of the surveys. You have a copy of the family and school relationship survey. So that's the one that's going to go out to the community, to all of our parents. You have a copy of the student survey for students in grades 3 to 5. You have a copy of the student survey for students in grades 6 through 12. Based on the feedback from the district committee, they thought it made sense for us to have two separate surveys, one for certified staff and one for non-certified staff, so you have a copy of both of those. So quite a bit of information for you to digest. We tried to make them as simple as possible, and the district committee actually helped us sort of ask some of the tough questions about, did we need so many questions asking the same kinds of things? So they're still fairly lengthy surveys, but it is going to give us a great deal of information. It's going to give us some background information to see if there's any trends or information that is helping us either do a good job or not do a good job. It's going to give us some information on school uniforms, on school safety, on perception of school and how our communication is or isn't helping the community, and just basically helping us figure out what we can do better. The survey, the results of the survey, I hope, are never used as a gotcha, because that's not how I use any feedback in all of my dealings in the district. I hope that whatever the results are, that we can have some, along with the district committee guiding the work, but have some really powerful conversations about how we can improve practice in support of our students. So that's ultimately the goal. So I need board members over the next 2 weeks to dive in. You get the final edit on what you believe should stay in the survey or what needs to be revised or removed. And then with the board's vote next week, I'll have the go to actually implement the surveys.
So if you're asking us to vote on December 6th, if people have feedback, how would you like them to give you the feedback so that we're not doing a group edit process in the meeting?
And we did that with the district committee. It's a difficult process because you get a whole lot of information, then you have to turn it around, and thank you to Holly for helping us get that done. So if board members could identify which survey they have an edit or a recommendation for, just email me. I would like to see question 3 changed, on the family survey, for example. Then we can make the adjustments. I want the survey to be what the board wants because you have asked me to give the survey. So it needs to meet your needs because you asked for it to be done.
So if we're going to vote on the 6th, though, we almost need the feedback by like a week before that so that we can see the final.
I would say if you can get me
result.
any feedback in a week or so, a week to 10 days, I can turn it around and give you the final results.
Do you want to say by the 29th?
What's today's date? I'm so
Well, the
lost.
29th is the Wednesday before our meeting. 6th.
Sure, as long as people feel comfortable, if I give you the final edits, you're comfortable making the decision. We just can't drag out the vote beyond December 6th, or I won't be able to get it out in time. I won't be able to do a second
Right.
survey.
I have another question.
Sure.
So everybody's going to get their feedback to you by the 29th. And then in the meeting, there may be something we have to work out if there are 3 people who have very different ideas about a question or something. But hopefully that won't happen.
I hope. I
And
hope
I
it won't
just,
happen.
I just hope, I don't want to belabor it, but
So
I-
the
I wanted to ask about the committee makeup, because that may mean something to the board to understand who had, like, not necessarily names, but what kind of representation was there on the committee?
Absolutely. Just like all of our committees, I tried to make sure that we sort of cross-pollinate. So we had members from the Administrators Bargaining Unit, we had members from WFT, and the members from WFT actually represented elementary, middle, and high school on purpose. We had members of the, it's WASP, WASP, the Secretaries Union. We had members from the WFEP, our paras and tutors. We had non-affiliated members. We had HR, the director of HR, and one of the HR staff members. So to me, we had a wide array of staff members represented, and I thought the committee in our Zoom meeting where they gave the feedback that led to this version were very, open and honest about the things they thought would work or wouldn't work. And one of the things that came up was the idea of making sure that everyone stays anonymous and they feel like this version meets that, is what they were looking for. So we had just about every major bargaining unit in our organization was represented in the district survey committee. So
Thanks. Does anybody else? Katina, I see your hand.
I would be interested in seeing the Spanish version of the family one, just to check translation and vocabulary.
So
if-
that's actually Robinson's job. After we get the final questions in English, he's doing the translations. Well, Panorama Education offers a Spanish version, but we always try to make sure that it's being edited because they aren't always perfect, as you know.
Robinson approved.
Yes, so he's the
Okay.
final edit on the Spanish
Thank
side.
you. Okay. I'll agree. Just kidding.
Any other questions? Mark?
Just a general information question. Where we have these essays or the, not fill the bubble in answers, who's going to synopsis them? How are you going to get
So
that?
that's part of what the $19,000 we're paying Panorama Education for. They're done digitally, whether on a computer or someone's phone, and then we'll get a list of how the questions were responded to, an analysis of that. That's what we're being charged for. That and access to their bank of questions.
Katina?
Just thinking ahead, if parents have difficulty with electronics, will there be a batch of these things maybe at the schools?
So one of the interesting things is if we roll this out in December, the elementary schools will have the easiest time probably engaging parents because it falls during their parent-teacher conferences when they have the majority of folks in their buildings and they're going to be able to check in and make some adjustments, have computers available, or potentially have paper copies that someone else could enter. I mean, we have to work all this out. The middle school and high school won't see their parents at the same time. They already had their first check-in on parent-teacher conferences. So my leadership team and I are going to be brainstorming how best to do this. We are offering incentives for participation rates because the reality is to get good data in a survey, you need decent participation rates. So I've talked to the district committee about some incentives and just talked to staff members in general, like what would motivate staff members to respond, students to respond, families to respond. So we want as much information, because if we're going to focus in on improving our practice, then we need to know it's truly something we have to improve upon.
So we won't be acting on it tonight. We'll move it to the December 6th agenda, okay? And folks will do their best to get feedback by the 29th of November.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. So now we're on to the board and committee meeting dates and location. People have had the proposal, and it's in our packet, right? Again, yeah. So now's the time to discuss it, because we really need to vote today on this, because it's due, we have to get our dates to town hall by the 1st of December, correct? Okay, so, oh, that's the other reason why. So if we don't do the vote today, we'd have to have a special meeting to do the vote before December 1st. Otherwise, we couldn't have our first meeting in January. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I know people may have some suggested changes to this, so let's open it up for discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I don't notice any location. It says committee meeting dates and location. I don't see, I'm assuming the location will be here, but I don't see any locations.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
I think we're talking about the location of the board meetings, that we believe the Windham High School auditorium will be available. So the board needs to make a decision if they'll continue here at the middle school or be at Windham High School.
No, it isn't. The committee meetings will stay virtual, and the board meetings, so we could decide tonight to stay here or move to the Windham High School auditorium. And let me just put a plug in that it would be a lot easier for the staff if we moved to the Windham High School auditorium, because that's where their offices are, and they wouldn't have to come over here. So we should take that under consideration. So first, anybody have any opinion on the location other than moving? I mean, do people not think we should move to the high school? Brendan?
More of a question, because I've only been in the renovated auditorium once quickly since it's been done. Is there floor space in front of, between the stage and the seats to seat us like this, or would we have to be up on the stage?
That's a great question. I haven't measured it out. There's enough floor space? Okay. The stage is really nice, too.
Certainly as much as there is here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I know when it's been on the stage before, they've had some reservations about it.
Well, we didn't like being on the stage here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anybody have, is there anybody opposed to moving it to the high school?
No, not opposed. I'm for it.
Okay, so when we vote on the calendar, we'll be voting on the location being the high school. Is there, we're not voting right now, we're just discussing. Discussion on the calendar. Paula?
Just with the personnel meeting in December, I know that's a very long way off, but wondering if the 23rd is an inconvenient night. It's very close to Christmas. Anybody have thoughts on that? That's really the only issue I have. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just looking at the 23rd of December as our personnel. I didn't know if that would be an issue for anyone being so close to the holiday.
think as the calendar, as the days happen, maybe we can decide at that time.
Take a look at that.
And just leave it scheduled, but if it needs to be canceled or postponed,
Okay.
do it at that time.
Yeah, you may be able to skip that month.
How about the Monday before? 16th.
I don't think we should choose a date before because we don't know what else is happening, like with school programs and things of that sort. Personally, I think Katina's suggestion is the committee can make a decision in November about what they want to do about December. But thanks for making the suggestion, Ilda. I know you were just trying to problem solve. Sorry. Anything else? Okay, so do we feel prepared to vote on this evening? Okay. There also is a budget calendar, which is right, it's the page 16. And people may recall, those of you who've been on the board for a while, that we have, under the town charter, we have to get the budget to the Board of Finance by the 15th of March. So really, the whole calendar is predicated on moving backward from the March 15th date to hand it off. And I'm assuming when the staff put this together, they calculated when the right bodies can meet and make decisions and proposals so that we can get an initial budget for the board. So does anybody have any questions or comments about the proposed schedule? No? Again, don't we wish we were in a town where we didn't have to have a budget referendum? I'm just going to say that. I'm going to keep saying that aloud till someday it becomes true. But since we do have a referendum, this is how we have to deal with it. Any other comments besides Lynn's snarky comment about the referendum? Okay, so do we feel ready to vote on this evening? Okay, great. And then the next item is, I know there's a proposal around the donation of a scoreboard to Windham High School, and who wants to speak about that? I think
So I'll give you the overview, and I think Zach is
Zach's on.
online.
Yeah, he can answer any questions, or he can make a statement if he
Good.
wants.
Do you want to take it, Zach, or do you want me to give the overview?
You're the boss. You tell me what to do.
Go ahead, Zach. I'll hand it off to you.
All right. So in the new gymnasium, which is beautiful, by the way, hope you guys can check out a basketball game this winter. There's only one scoreboard, when previously in the old gym there were two, one at each end. And through discussions with the Booster Club, we came upon a group of alumni led by Mr. Neil Curlin, who I invite to be on tonight in case you had any questions of him, who's a former basketball coach and administrator at Windham, who they want to donate a scoreboard so that we have the two scoreboards like we do and like just about every other school does. And they were hoping to be able to dedicate it to a former Windham athlete, Mr. Thad Weaver. And so the idea is that Mr. Curlin is going to collect money and elicit donations from a group of alumni. The Booster Club is going to purchase the scoreboard and have it installed in the gymnasium. And then I've been working with the construction crew to ensure that we have the correct electrical hookup in that spot. And that's kind of where we're
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions for Zach? Yep, Mark?
Particularly selecting that one particular person, was there a committee, was there a group? Where did that come from?
Good question.
I don't know the answer to that. I think Neil's going to go do a policy dive right now, but I don't think we can answer that right now.
Katina, did you want to say something?
I have looked at those policies like forever, and I cannot remember seeing any that specifically states that.
Well, while Neil's looking, how was the decision made about for whom to be dedicated? Can anybody answer on that on the Zach or?
So when I was talking with Mr. Curlin, he approached me about the possibility of it being named or having a sign, dedicated in memory of Thad Weaver. I said that the scoreboard had to be taken to, because it's a donation through the Booster Club. So again, this is not coming through school funds. The money is not coming to the schools, going through the Booster Club. I said that the scoreboard has to go to the Board of Ed because it's a donation over $1,000, and that I would take it to the Board of Ed with the scoreboard as far as being able to put a sign up, in memory of Thad Weaver. And that's why I invited Neil to be on tonight. I don't know if Neil, you want to jump in and maybe speak to Thad and his, I know he was on your team, and he came back and worked at Windham Public Schools after he was a student here. So kind of just speak to him and why the alumni group chose or requested to be able to put a sign up in memory of that.
Yeah, sure, Zach. Hi, hello to everyone on the board and anyone else that might be viewing tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I was a teacher. I'm an alumnus of Windham High School, 1976. I became a teacher and head basketball coach in 1985. And then I just retired from education as an administrator in several different districts 3 years ago. When I heard that the gymnasium only had one scoreboard, and every other gymnasium in my career that I know of, in every gym in Eastern Connecticut and Connecticut that hosts varsity high school boys and girls games have 2 scoreboards, certainly was unsettling to me, and I immediately thought that it would be a great idea for some of us as former coaches, former players, a small group I might add, less than 20 people that I've reached out to who I'm happy to say because of Windham High School and other people and accomplishments in our past, we've done well enough so that we could just take a small group of people and donate the money and benefit Windham High School athletics. And in doing that, I reached out to friends of Thad. Thad grew up in Willimantic on Oak Street, and he played basketball for me at Windham High School. He graduated in '86, went to Eastern, played 4 years at Eastern, graduated, came back, worked as a para, decided he would go into special education, and he got a job in special education teaching at Southington High School. And unfortunately, at the age of 52, he succumbed to esophageal cancer. And I was just kind of putting this together in my mind, and I thought this would be a terrific thing. There is a precedent where the Booster Club has put a former athlete's name, to my understanding, on the concession stand at the football field, which has a plaque, and I think it's dedicated to Kirk Schambach, a former football player. So I'm hoping that the board will take this generosity and allow us to go forward. We think we can move pretty quickly on this, and the student athletes will have a second scoreboard up for most of their season this year.
Thank you for that explanation. Is there anybody else who has any comments or questions? Mary?
Yes, thanks to Zach and to our other guest, Mr. Carlin. I would like to look at the policy, it may be that there's a different idea for something that's not a field and comes through the Booster Club, but I certainly don't know offhand. And I would just like to say it is just one more puzzle about some aspects of the renovation that is very difficult, is difficult to grasp, why we don't have the 2 scoreboards in the plan, but I will ask that at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mary. Brendan?
I will say in my quick research right now, I'm not aware of any Board of Education policy preventing naming. I don't remember seeing one. I didn't find any in a quick search. There is a town policy, which defines it as public parks, roads, recreation facilities, memorials, auditoriums, buildings, and facilities, also known as public facilities or public facility or public facilities is what it pertains to.
Katina?
I just quickly looked through all the K policies again. I cannot see or identify anything, and Mr. Weathers is agreeing with me. And in terms of the town, we just had the Roberto Clemente baseball field, and the dog park is named after.
We have many, many things at the town level named after.
So I have no problem accepting and voting tonight for this generous contribution and in the memory of the gentleman.
Mark, is there something you wanted to say?
I have no problems voting tonight for it. I know there was at one point a policy, because we ran into it when we named Ferrigno Field, and then had to come up whether we could do the Bobcat at track. And there was a certain requirement about someone had to have been passed away for a certain number. But that's something we can work out in the future, whether we need a policy for naming it or not. So I had no problems voting for this. I always get nervous when one small group could actually, have it, be fortunate and generous enough to do this, but I don't want to cut off that generosity or that, or be fortunate. So I would certainly have no problem voting for it.
I have a suggestion that we could, when we take a motion during the action items this evening, we could take a motion to accept the generous gift and accept the intent to have it, the deceased memorial, with a memorial plaque, pending our double checking with the town to make sure that we can do that without some other further action. That's just my way of trying to have a caveat, not to be unappreciative, but to be real that we may run into some issue. I don't know how the donors would feel about that caveat, but that's what I'm putting on the table as a thought. I don't know whether anybody online wants to say anything about that.
Zach, I'd like to speak up relative, I think, to that comment. The scoreboard that's being ordered is quoted at $7,300, and it includes a actual dedication on the actual scoreboard. And it's going to say, in memory of Thad Weaver, class of '86, dedicated by coaches, teammates, and friends. So it's actually something that once it's on that scoreboard, it's on the scoreboard. It's a permanent signage as part of the scoreboard.
Right, but you understand that we may be beholden to a policy. So we can't tonight vote to accept it and then find out after further research tomorrow or Friday that we actually have to get approval somehow for that dedication. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just...
No, I understand, and you just do what you have to do and let us know if we can move forward with it permanently, as soon as possible, and then we'll go for it.
Okay. Because I see Holly and Neil looking at things now. So when it comes time to take action, we might want to put that caveat in there unless we hear something definitive before then. Okay? Is that good enough for now, folks, for discussion? Okay, unless you have something you can share with us right now.
You have something?
You need to come to a mic. I'm sorry.
We have one amended policy. It's policy 7000, was amended January 18th of 2023. If the board wants to take a quick recess and review this, or if you want me to just bring this over to Tracy, I can do that too.
Why do we have to take a quick recess? Can't somebody just read it to us? Is it really long? Okay. Somebody on the board could read it, or Neil could read it, or?
Just that section, right? Okay. So this is just section J of the policy under the category finance. The town has the responsibility of funding the construction of educational facilities. The Board of Education recognizes the need to plan new facilities within the town's ability to pay. Therefore, liaison shall be established with the town when a particular need is determined for new facilities or for improvement to existing facilities. After a project has been identified, as an estimate of the cost will be developed and given to the town for consideration and inclusion in the town's long-range capital improvement plan. I guess we're wondering if that improvement is impacted here. Maybe it's not. That's what we just wanted to bring up for discussion.
What if, I don't really think it was meant for, something along the lines of a scoreboard.
That doesn't have
I agree.
anything to do. No.
So it sounds like Mark.
I feel bad to bring this up now. I have no again, I said before, I have no objections voting for this with Thad's name on it. Perhaps we could take the vote, and instead of saying postponing the vote until we hear from the town, it shouldn't take the town more than a day or so to do this, give us an answer. I don't think the town has a particular role in our naming a scoreboard after somebody, but perhaps we could vote yes or no for it tonight, pending what. But what I'm suggesting is we vote for it tonight, and then maybe have a couple of days pending before it goes into action.
Well, that's what I suggested.
Okay.
We accept the donation of the scoreboard, and the in memoriam wording is pending us clarifying whether or not we can go ahead and do that.
Right. I was just concerned that Neil had pointed out it's going to be on the scoreboard itself, so.
Right.
As
It
long
means
as
that they
long as you have time
can't
to do it.
formally order the scoreboard until we can give them an answer on that.
Right.
But we could take action to approve it pending that. And then they can decide whether or not, if we find out that we can't do that, then they could decide whether or not they want to move forward.
May I ask a
Yep.
clarification question? Because I didn't hear anything about memorializing. What I heard was about asking for permission for improvements in buildings and education, correct? So I don't think that the board qualifies as an improvement of the building or facilities, and it mentions nothing about memorializing.
I don't think that's the point. I think the point is whether or not you can name something. Yep, but Rita looks like she wants to say something. So Rita, come on up. I can't believe this is.
Sorry, I
taking
just
us
had
so
to
long.
say that improvements are anything over $5,000, and it's
Okay.
attached to the building, so it might be included in that.
So this is
It's
over
$5,000.
over $5,000. So tonight we could take action to accept the gift, and we may need to do a little more research on whether or not we can accept the gift with the in memoriam part of it. And then if the answer is no to that, then it's up to the donors to decide whether or not they want to give us a scoreboard without the in memoriam. But let's just, when we do take a motion this evening, let's just give ourselves that time to get that clarification. I'm sorry this is so difficult, but we have to make sure we're doing things correctly. And a lot of people have opinions here, but I think we're not really clear. So, okay, thanks. So now we're on to committee reports and curriculum. Mary?
Yes, we had our meeting, I think last week, and I did the minutes immediately after, and then I did not bring them with me tonight. But we talked about the tutoring programs mainly at the high school. And Neil gave a wonderful presentation. And I think I can remember the 7 types of tutoring that are offered. And Tier 1, which is during the school day, and it is often a supplement to the instruction during class. There's also after-school tutoring, and that is staffed by usually the certified teachers. There are behavior tutors for students who need that support. There are post-lengthy absence tutors, and there are SAT tutors, which have not begun, or the SAT tutoring is usually in the winter. There's the athletic academic support tutoring, which we discussed in the board with a policy kind of amendment. And the last one is this high dosage tutoring, which is funded by a grant from the Connecticut State Department of Education, I believe. It's in, I think, math and science, and it will be for 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And that has not started either. And we got a kind of late addition about writing tutors at the high school. So,
Good job, Mary. I saw that Paula was reading her notes while you were. Any questions or comments on that? Sounds like an interesting discussion. Policy Committee. I'll turn it over to you, Katina.
And Brendan. Anyways, yes, we met and we had a successful meeting. You have for your consideration the approval of the repeal of about 16 different policies and one that is repeal and replace. The last one is to review in detail, and it's an important policy considering because of legislative updates that have happened in the past year. And that's the series of 5,000 bullying and prevention and intervention policy, which includes school climate plan. So please, I hope that you have had a chance to read them and review them and vote for this proposal tonight. And then do you have anything to add?
Nope, that pretty much covers it.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Katina and that committee. And then we're on to personnel. Over to you, Paula.
Personnel met Monday. We actually got a little bit of an earlier start. We just had a little conflict between what we previously had as a 6 o'clock meeting and what the agenda came out as 5:30. So we actually got on board at 5:30 and people sort of caught up, but everybody was there for the meat of it. HR, Grace gave us an update on the Employee Recognition Committee, its development and its mission to recognize outstanding staff and their accomplishments. So they're working on that. Also, she reported that they completed the employee handbook. And there were lots of things. I'll try to be quick because they have been extremely busy. They're helping out with school administrators and screening applicants per their qualifications so that interview process can go a little faster. They've attended conferences and webinars to improve their knowledge of various aspects of HR, Department of Labor, FMLA, acquainting themselves better with all of that. They participated in the walkthroughs that Dr. Youngberg spoke of earlier. They've been attending career fairs, working with Eastern on career and internship fairs where they're talking with students about what their career options are if they're unsure of their career paths. They've sat with students at QVCC. Again, those students who don't know exactly where they want to go and what they want to do, helping them to learn about the possibilities and the opportunities that we have in our district. continuing to work with NEAG Summit at UConn, which will be held in December, to discuss student-teacher placements and different ways to recruit. Let's see, there's so many things, but also they're going to be, they're waiting for the proposal from the other company that's going to be contracting. We'll see. We'll be contracting with them for substitute teachers. And HR has now completed its staffing with the hiring of Michael Goba in the position of Labor Relations Coordinator. Michael's the son of Joan Goba, who worked in our district for many, many years. And he's had a very incredible career. He spent time in the military, was a JAG attorney with the...
Yeah, he was, as I recall, he retired as a major, but he spent 20 years in the Army JAG Corps.
Yeah, you may have heard him occasionally on WILI. He occasionally does talks there. So that will be a welcomed addition. She also gave us a vacancy report, which we've all seen, so we were updated. And let's see, our WAAR administrators, negotiation, mediation was accepted at mediation. It took all wonderful to the board, to the conference room with us after. Everybody was thankful, and they were very gracious. And again, I mentioned it at the meeting. I just want to say again that it's very warm to me for the amount of central office participation in these negotiations and mediation. I think it's wonderful. And it's certainly helpful to have all that information right at hand. And I think I'm almost done. Last and importantly, we just reviewed the superintendent's mid-year assessment, and we'll accompany the minutes that you all can receive. That's it.
Thank you, Paula. Any questions, comments? Okay, yes?
Can I just update the board on information related to school planning and design?
Yes.
Okay, so we know from the last meeting, the presentation that we were given by the town planner and the town engineer, that the Sweeney site was not a site we could build the new elementary school on. So the next step would be for us to go out and tour the sites that could potentially be available. So there was some question about whether or not, if we were to do that, if it had to be in an executive session or an open meeting. We verified with Attorney Ritter that the tour itself of the sites needs to be posted as an open meeting. Any discussions after the tour could be held in executive session. So that's where we are. I think we're looking at November 25th at 9 a.m. It's a Saturday morning. Well, and maybe we can choose some additional dates if that's going to be better for the board. But we do have to do this quickly if we're going to still
We have to
look
keep
at-
this moving, and
Right.
so folks who are available can go on the tour. It's not like any decision will be made. If we get close to a final site, we can go do other tours.
Yeah,
But
we
we
really want to
can't
get this on the
wait.
ballot soon, and if we keep pushing it, it's not going to make it on the ballot, so that's where we are.
So folks who want to go on the tour should plan on being there in front of the high school
9
at
a.m.
9 a.m. on Saturday, the 25th of November. I know it's Thanksgiving weekend, but those of us who can make it can make it. Right, Brendan,
Correct.
as chair of the committee?
Correct. Hopefully as many of you can make it as possible, but we got, like Tracy said, we do have to keep this moving forward or we're going to miss the target.
Thank you for bringing that up. Sorry I'm sorry to disappoint people who are busy that day, but this isn't the only chance we'll get. So now we're on to action items, and we're not going to be voting on the survey tonight, which is item A under action items. We're going to vote on that in December. I'll entertain a motion on B to vote on the proposed board and committee meeting dates and location for 2024, and the location will be Windham High School Auditorium.
So moved.
Motion made by Brendan, seconded by Katina. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Excuse me, it's unanimous. The next, I'll entertain a motion on the proposed budget calendar that was presented to us in our packets.
So moved.
Motion made by Mark. Do I get a second? Second by Paula. Just want to mention that you should take this back to you, these dates back to you and your house, and put them in your calendar, okay? So all those in favor of the proposed budget calendar being approved, please indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, item D, I'll entertain a vote on the Windham Medical Staff Scholarship for deserving high school students. Yeah.
Being taken off because we haven't given them the additional
Right.
information they asked for yet. Yeah.
Right, I was sort of surprised when I started reading that again. I should have caught that. Okay, thanks. We'll skip over that because we don't have the details that we need yet. Now we're on to item E, a vote on the donation of a scoreboard to Windham High School with the caveat that we may, oh, Mark.
I happened to, I found the policy. It was policy 1180 about memorials for deceased staff and students, but we repealed it on 7/19/23.
Okay.
So there was a policy, we repealed it on 7/19/23. I can't find one that took its place.
So do we still think we need the caveat because it's valued at over $5,000?
My only question is if the town policy comes into play here.
Right, because it's valued at over $5,000. So I would entertain, would somebody make a motion to move forward and accept, no, but it needs to be to move forward and accept the donation of a scoreboard with the caveat that we need to do a little bit more research to find out whether or not it can be in memoriam, and then the donors can make their decision from there.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the donations from the generous people with the caveat that we are going to do more research, although I've looked at Google and there's nothing that says you cannot do that.
No,
Okay.
don't say
I'll
that
take
in your
some of that
motion,
stuff back.
Ilda. That's no.
Rewind.
Ilda, rewind. Will you start the
Stop
motion
at
over again
Google.
and not editorialize, please? Okay?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept now I can't say it. Accept. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the donation graciously for the scoreboard, with the caveat that we will do some more research to make sure we can put the deceased gentleman's name on it.
Do I get a second on that?
So looking at Google now.
Motion made by Ilda. Do I get a second on that? Second by Katina. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, the motion passes, and how will we do the follow-up on this?
We're going to be doing some research. I'll contact
With
the
the town.
town and figure out.
Okay.
Policy committee.
No, it's actually a town issue, not a Board of Ed issue.
Why is it a town issue?
Because it's a town building, and there's town policy. Right. Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion on F to vote on approval of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act grant application.
So moved.
Motion made by Brendan, seconded by Katina. Any further discussion, except that we really need this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, thank you. Now we're on to policies. And I would entertain a motion on the vote on policies for repeal, item G, numbers 1 through 16. Would anybody
moved.
like to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved by Brendan. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second by Alicia. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, motion carries. Then I would entertain a motion to vote on policies for repeal and replacement, and there's just one there. Motion made by Katina. Do I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. And then finally, for action, I'll entertain a vote on a policy for revision due to legislative updates. And as Katina pointed out, that's very important, related to bullying prevention and intervention policy. Would somebody like to make that motion? So moved. Motion made by Paula. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second by Alicia. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. And then the last item for tonight is public comment. Is there anybody who would like to speak during public comment? Okay, not seeing any. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:43.
I move, we move.
Here we go.